How is it going, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Speedway Soccer Live. We are on Broadway Sports Media. Huge shout out to Broadway Sports Media for bringing this to you tonight. I am Davey Shepard. I'll be hosting this evening, and I'm here with two OGs, Ben Wright, Jonathan Slape, join us tonight. As always, Slape's Twitter handle is blacked out. I don't know what that is about, but it's at JS Slape. That's still it, right?
J Slape SSP.
I had it totally wrong. So that's what it is, what he just said. Holler at him if you haven't yet. Guys, good to see you. We've been out of the saddle for a little bit, but a lot of news going on as far as NSC is concerned, MLS is concerned, soccer in general is concerned, and so we wanted to make sure we get an episode in. But first, how you guys doing tonight? Everybody doing all right?
Doing pretty well. Snow's melting. It's going to be 64 degrees this week, so doing well.
Yeah, my big concern for the week was that Ben was going to be like Jack Nicholson with the hatchet busting through a door with the kids inside over there for a full week frozen in. But somehow that didn't happen, so he's here. He's here for the episode. It looks like his screen may be frozen right now, though.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm assuming you guys can still hear me. But
yes, you sound great.
Well, I look great, too, apparently.
All right.
Let me figure this out. We'll keep
That's
going.
cool, but we'll pitch some stuff your way. Chime in. We'll start with Slape, though. The big news, and let's just start kind of with the league as a whole, right? Before we get into it here, we got 45 people on watching now. You guys know the deal here. Chime in. If you got questions, kick them our way. We'll put them up. We'll answer them. Anything you've got, throw it our way, and we'll make sure we take care of it. Starting with league news. The new CBA was pushed through. If you recall, force majeure clause was activated by the ownership group. Players didn't like that too much, had things that they weren't willing to do. It looked like the big thing the owners wanted to get was pushing that new CBA through the World Cup of 2026, a home World Cup where revenues are obviously going to increase. That ended up happening. So the owners looked like they got their way. Ben, any pieces that I'm missing there as far as the whole picture goes?
No, I mean, I think the main point is that in the short term, the players didn't take any salary cuts, which I think is the big thing that they wanted going into 2021.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I think for the long-term growth of the league, it would be better if they could have stuck to their guns a bit more and got some more concessions out of the owners. But I mean,
sure.
Realistically, a lot of these players aren't going to be around in 2027 anyway. So from their perspective, probably getting their full salary right now is more important. I mean, they got some minor free agency concessions, but I think the real issue is that they miss out on the leverage that they'll get from the World Cup.
Speaking of free agency conversation, we have a Titans free agency question from Caitlin Johnson. I'm going to go ahead and field this one as the Titans season ticket holder of the group. Caitlin, this is a soccer show, but I like your question a lot. I think Jayon should absolutely be a priority for the Titans this season, especially considering my gut is that they're not going to pick up Rashaan Evans' option. I think Jayon, when healthy, has shown that he can be kind of the stalwart of that defense. And as bad as the defense was for stretches last year, I think you've got to see starting middle linebacker come back, quarterback of the offense. I think it kind of just improves it just by getting that guy back in the lineup. So I do think they've got to extend him. Of course, that means a guy like Jonnu or a guy like Corey Davis is probably going to walk. So take that for what it's at. I'm a soccer guy, but I think that's a fairly comprehensive answer. Tweet Mike Herndon or F Words Pod and see what they think about that answer. But I think that they would agree with me.
I completely agree.
We are getting lots of Titans answers right now. No one knows what's up with Isaiah Wilson, Brad. No one? Isaiah Wilson doesn't know what's up with Isaiah Wilson. So
is this like the episode of 30 Rock where Tracy goes on?
I think so. Okay, let's move along from the CBA. Again, I just don't think there was a ton there for the players to do. And like you said, Ben, we talked about this in our last episode. The fact that the rank and file, it's just so hard to get on the same page in these sports collective bargaining deliberations. And it's really, really hard all the time to get the players at the top and the players at the bottom on the same level. And that's why they always end up kind of caving. And it was just kind of obvious that's what was going to happen.
And especially in a league like MLS where, I mean, the top isn't making nearly the same money as NFL, NBA, NHL, anything like that. But the bottom players are making like, some of them are making $60,000 a year.
Yeah, they're not making minimum wage, but it's nothing crazy.
It's not paycheck to paycheck, but I mean, they can't sustain. It's the type of thing where, I mean, a lot of those players, especially the ones with families, if you miss a paycheck or two, it hurts. And so they're not going to be able to stick to I lost my train of thought there, but they're not going to be able to stick to their guns for 2 months and potentially go without pay for 2 months. The guys at the top could, but I just don't think we're at the point where the MLSPA is organized and has the resources enough to be able to really hold out that long.
Yeah, I just don't think they have I think it comes down to having a strike fund, and I just don't feel that they have that built up at the moment. I mean, there was a few other. I mean, the big thing was, there were some concessions in free agency as well. But with this new CBA being in place, and I think it's going to kind of come in when we start talking about some new signings, is it opens up some new avenues and some new pools of money for MLS with the Young Money Initiative, that allows players under 22, basically allows teams to spend whatever they want on the transfer fee, but only take a max cap hit of 150,000. So it'll be interesting to see how a guy like Mike Jacobs takes advantage of that. But I think with all of the CBA behind us, the big thing is we now know when the season starts and when camp starts.
Yeah, and that's the big one. Season April 17th. That'll be just a normal slate of games starting that day. No guarantee Nashville plays that day. Preseason camp beginning March 8th. If you look at the normal year-to-year, there's about 2 weeks of camp. We know that there's going to be a 1 week holding period this year, right, due to COVID, right, Ben?
Yes.
So 1 week holding period and then 2 weeks of camp. So looking somewhere around March 20th, probably, that we'll see those games start, and that tracks with what we saw last year as well.
Yeah, they can start reporting on March 1st, and I believe they have the option to quarantine on their own before they get into training camp, so that you can start getting some training sessions in a week ahead of schedule. But yeah, I don't expect they'll play games before the 20th. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of my gut as well. So those new games coming up, probably the best thing about preseason is that you get to see new players in the roster for the first time. And let's kind of start with the top. The biggest one, Ben, you've reported that you believe this to be potentially a young DP signing, high-level salary player for Nashville Soccer Club. Rodrigo Pinheiro comes over. We assume starting right winger. Is that correct, Ben?
I'd say right or left. I think he and Leal are both guys who can play on either side. But yeah, from what I've heard, I expect them to buy down Leal's contract here before the season starts, and officially announce Pinheiro as a young designated player. But that's not. They don't have to make that official until roster compliance deadline, which is traditionally the day before the season starts. But yeah, expecting that we should hear something on those lines soon. Also interested to see what happens with that on the new Young Money Under 22 initiative that MLS has talked about. Pinheiro is a guy who could theoretically fit into that. But if the transfer fee that they paid for him is as high as I've seen it reported in some places, I'm not sure that he'd technically fit in that. So yeah, there's still some wiggle room.
Well, what Tenorio and Sam Stejskal had reported was that the transfer fee can be unlimited for the Young Money Initiative. It's just he cannot be paid more than the max salary charge. So I think in this new current CBA, it's like $650,000. As long as he's not making over that, he only counts toward the cap of $150,000, and that actually counts until he's 25. But it all comes. It'll all come down to what he's getting paid. So I mean, but he meets the age requirement
for sure,
and for the Young Money signings.
And none of Nashville's other designated players do. I believe Leal is the youngest, and he's 24, and Mukhtar and Cadiz are both 25. So yeah, they'll have a couple weeks to make that official before the season starts.
So Rodrigo Pinheiro probably leads the signings, but I think you could make the argument that as far as possible instant impact goes, CJ Sapong has a chance of being a huge impact player for this club, right?
Yeah, I want to see where he, just how it shapes up in preseason, because I think Cadiz is the guy. He's going to be the guy until they either...
He's going to be given the chance to be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, until his loan either ends or they more likely, I think they make the transfer permanent. I think probably at this point it's a formality, unless he's just horrendous to start the season, which I don't expect. I think we should see improvement from him on what we saw last year. But yeah, he's going to be given every chance to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's worth the money. And then I think I know you guys think I'm way too high on Daniel Rios, but I mean I think he's a guy that they protected in the expansion draft, and I mean was tied for the top scorer last year. I mean I'm not saying he's the answer at starting forward, but I mean he's a guy who in limited MLS minutes did well last season, and I think he's going to be given chances. So I think it's going to be really a battle between those three. And I think probably it's going to come down to Rios and Sapong behind Cadiz to see who gets the most minutes off the bench or in relief of him when he's on international duty.
Yeah, and I think you can say, pretty clear cut what we're going into this season with our striking core versus what we went into the off season or into the season last year is a marketable change. Sapong is a guy who's been in the league for 10 years, which is crazy to think, because I mean, looking back, it doesn't feel like 2011 was that long ago, but I mean, he's had a successful career, first at Kansas City, went to Philly, and then, finished off with the Fire. He was injured last year, so it'll be how well he comes back from that. But I mean, he's got a lot of talent, knows how to score goals. And I think that says a lot, considering where we, sat last year in the goal scoring standings.
I don't think it's unfair to say that he's more.
Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Slape, it's not unfair to say that he's probably more a sure thing than Don Badji, right?
Oh, I would say without a shadow of a doubt, he's more of a sure thing. I think he's more of we go back and forth on Daniel Rios. I think he's more of a sure thing than Daniel Rios.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're pretty close. I'm interested to see what happens with Badji, because I mean they're currently going into the season with four guys who have at times been starters in MLS. I mean, probably Daniel Rios is the outlier there, but I mean, four guys who are probably capable of starting in MLS. They paid $400,000 in allocation money for Badji last year, and I'm not sure that they'll get an offer similar to that going into the season. So I don't know if they're going to try to move him before the season, if they're going to give him a chance to earn minutes, or if they're going to hold on to him until the summer and see what offers they can get for him. But it's crowded. And yeah, I mean, that wasn't really something that we could say last year, but I mean, there's going to be a real battle for the starting striker job.
I was just going to say, I think, like, how many games did we sit there towards the end and, it's locked up at 1-1 or we're down a goal or whatever it might have been, and we just needed that extra one. And I think to be able to bring a guy like CJ off the bench, who's just got the caliber and the kind of the pedigree of having the goals scored, it's just kind of a different tone to bringing on a Daniel Rios or bringing on whatever. I think you guys made a few good points. Cadiz is going to miss some time internationally, so that's a big one. And then, look, I think the thing that we've got to be ready for is time missed with Hani Mukhtar due to injury. And if he's not in the roster, does this team possibly look like a 4-4-2 maybe with Pinheiro and Leal out wide and then Rios and Cadiz up top? What does it look like?
I think if Mukhtar misses any time, I think they just slide Leal centrally.
Leal, and then Moyle comes back into the starting lineup.
Yeah, you have Moyle, you have even Handwala Buana, who, I mean, he's still young and still developing, but they're obviously pretty high on him and think that he can turn into a contributor, potentially a starter. So I think, I mean, I've heard some people on the staff say that they think Leal is more like a number 10 who kind of plays out wide, but see him kind of as a natural fit there anyway. So yeah, I mean, Gary Smith has changed formations up a couple times anyway, so it's not out of the question. But I think just the simplest thing to do without completely overhauling the system is just to move Leal there, and you have depth on the wing now, which they didn't have last year.
Yeah, and you can put Dunladi out there on the wing as well too.
I mean, you can put Taylor Washington out on the wing. I mean, I think they have options. They have a lot more options than they had last year, which I think is one of the exciting things going into the season. It feels like last year was a good core, and they've kind of filled that out a lot more. And instead of just having a nailed-on starting 11, you have a pretty decent 14, 15 guys, and you're going to have some real competition for minutes, and you're going to have guys who probably deserve to start who are coming off the bench, and that's a good problem to have.
So Robert Castellanos and Nick Hines round out the additions. Nick Hines just announced earlier today. Ben, what do we expect to see from those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think of the two of those two signings, I think Hines probably has more. I'd say he's more likely to see the field this year. I mean, he's another guy. Both signed from the USL Championship, which Nashville are clearly not afraid to take chances on guys from the lower divisions. I think they're the 5th and 6th guys on the roster who are currently signed from USL. But I mean, Dan Lovitz is the clear starter at left back, so I don't think anybody's going to come in and take his job. I want to see how it impacts Taylor Washington, because I think he was a guy who we were all really impressed with last year, but he did end up playing more on the wing. So maybe this is an indication that they think Washington is going to get spot minutes on the wing, and Hines is going to come in and really be the backup left back. But I mean, a solid player at the USL level, was in Seattle's academy. So, I mean, he has lots of potential. Nashville went out and bought his homegrown right. So, I mean, I think they clearly see that they think he's a guy who could turn into an MLS player, but it's not like there's a clear path to starting minutes from him off the bat. And Castellanos, I think he's a high potential player. He's still really young, but center back's just crowded. I mean, you have Zimmerman and Romney are the clear starters. Mayer is a starting quality player, and Ababa is a starting quality player. I think it's probably more likely that he's a replacement for like a guy like Miguel Nazarit, who didn't really see the field much last year, but they think could develop into a potential contributor.
Yeah,
let me ask you a question, Slape. Oh, go. I've got a question for you, Slape, but go ahead.
I feel like center back is also the position that we could see the most guys potentially miss throughout the summer with national team, because there's a chance that Jack Mayer gets called up for the either Olympic qualifying or the Olympics. Walker Zimmerman will miss time with the U.S. national team, whether that's the CONCACAF Nations League finals, whether that's Gold Cup this year. He's going to miss time. So I think that having good center back depth is going to be key for this summer.
So, good question. We'll start with Slape. We've just gone through the new signings, so we know the group going to camp. Just simple yes or no. Roster is better in 2021 headed to camp than it was in 2020.
Oh yeah,
I would
absolutely.
I would say it's clearly better.
I mean, even you have 3 DPs. They didn't have that last year. So I mean, even on just that, I think for sure. And then just so much more depth. I mean, you have depth at winger and forward, which they didn't have all last year.
Yeah, I asked because I was having this conversation with Jonathan Hutton, formerly of Midday 180 and soon to be of Outkick 360 over on Outkick with Clay Travis. And he was asking about the roster. He said, is the team going to be better, going to be worse? And I said, well, I think the team in a vacuum is better, right? Like it just on its face, just the roster. I think absolutely the roster is better. But I think what makes the season interesting is that the team overachieved last year, and you could have a team with a better roster, maybe not get the same level of results this season and still be maybe just as good or better. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. And we'll maybe I know we'll have a big season preview soon, but that's just something I've been stewing over the last few days.
I think that you have a bunch of guys. You have all of your DPs are not brand new to the league as well. So even the guys that are coming in that had played here last year, you don't have anybody that has to acclimate to the league. But I think it is good to keep in mind there were several teams that really underachieved last year, like the likes of Atlanta United, who are going to be better. So I mean, you said,
Atlanta might have won the offseason so far. I mean, they've made some really good moves.
I mean, even Cincinnati's gotten considerably better as well.
Yeah, it feels gross to say that, but yeah.
I mean, considerably better is still could be last place for them, though.
Cincinnati's going to be, I mean, like Davey said, we'll get into this later, but I think they're going to be really interesting because of all the signings they've made. I think they're either going to be really good or it's going to fall apart miserably. It's hard to see a huge middle ground from them.
Well, let's root for fall apart miserably. So, I mean, that'll just be fun to watch. But, all right, guys, outgoings, nothing super notable other than David Accam. Miguel Nazarit goes on loan. Derek Jones heads to Houston, and David Accam heads overseas. David Accam, probably the most disappointing NSC player in our short history, right?
Yeah.
I don't mean that as a knock against him, but whether it's due to injury or whatever, he just had a high level of expectations that obviously weren't met, right?
I mean, they spent $650,000 in allocation money to go out and get him.
And got a goal out of him, yeah?
Yeah, they got a goal. I mean, the first win.
First win, right?
So
I mean, under 300 minutes from him.
But I mean, I think there's no way to mince words. It was a disappointment. He was a disappointment.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, hopefully the guy can revive it. I don't know what the deal was here. Clearly just didn't get on, and I think probably moving on was probably the best for all parties involved. He clearly wasn't in Gary's plans, and I mean, that was announced before the Pinheiro deal, but the Pinheiro deal we knew was happening, so that thing I think was kind of tongue and groove, those two working together. Derek Jones heading out, we were all big fans, right? But I think the fact that we all kind of said over and over and over and over and over again, this guy's an 8, and he was never played as an 8, kind of just was the writing on the wall for like what he was headed with Gary and Mike, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly a really good player. I mean, he's really good on the ball. He's especially for such a big guy, and I think the talent is there. And I think it's just he just didn't fit in Gary's system. I mean, he's not a natural 10, but that's kind of where he played out of necessity a lot last year. But I mean, he's not a natural 10, and I think he gives the ball away too much to probably play as an 8. And you saw Brian Anunga just come in and outperform him, and even Matt LaGrassa, I think, was trusted in a deeper lying role a bit more than him. So yeah, I think hopefully he finds more of a better fit in Houston, because I think he's a really good player, and I still think he has a lot of potential, but I just don't think it worked out for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big fan. I am interested to see what happens with him in Houston, going back playing under his former U20 coach. So maybe Tab Ramos is able to get the best out of him.
Right.
I mean, I'll always root for the guy, but I think that also it leaves a big hole in this team of what we need in the depth in the midfield.
Yeah, say what you want about the guy and it working out here or not. Gary clearly trusted him. He played him as a 10. He played him as a 9. He'd kind of move him all over the place. So, I mean, like you said, I want the best for the guy. Some great moments for NSC. That goal he scored at First Tennessee Park, still one of my favorite goals in NSC history. I think up there with the Lancaster banger for probably around best goal. Am I missing one from last year? The Mukhtar free kick was really nice.
Rios's
Rios's goal against Dallas at home was really nice.
Then you had Lovitz's outside of the box.
That was very nice as well. Yeah, that's probably my actual favorite. Like
Randall Leal against Miami playoff win, absolute banger to the top corner.
No, that's probably it, right? That's probably the actual best one.
Nashville didn't score.
We need to have a separate show for this. Best goal.
Bangers only, dude. Bangers only.
Nashville did score bangers only last year.
Well, hey, thank God we scored bangers, because that was
back to 2018. Bolu Akinyote against Cincinnati in that what was
another
it?
Great goal. I remain confident Bolu didn't know much about that at all, but it went in the back of the net. So we need to get him one day and ask him that. Did you know anything about that goal or not?
Where's he? He's at Miami right now.
Yeah,
right?
He's down in Miami now.
Nice.
What for? What? Where?
No, Miami FC, not Inter Miami.
Oh, FC. Okay.
So
Birmingham sold. He was transferred from Birmingham.
Birmingham sold him.
And that's NASL.
No, it's USL.
It's USL.
Oh, that's USL. Okay, they moved over. Gotcha. All right. Before we head into kind of the wrap up stuff, talking about just the way the team's trending and stuff like that. Question for you: rumors a few weeks ago that Frankie Amaya had been FCC had been reached out about Frankie Amaya from 2 Eastern Conference teams. No definite answer or not. Do you guys think we possibly were one of the clubs that were very interested in him as a player?
I think all the information that we know that it was a Western Conference team and 2 Eastern Conference teams, and the 2 Eastern Conference teams both offered around $1 million in general allocation money. There's not a ton of teams out there that have a lot of general allocation money. Nashville is one that's been collecting it like it's some kind of like they're on a quest. But I mean, I think with what he provides and the holes in this team, I think it's pretty clear. We can't say with any certainty that Nashville probably is one of the teams that was inquiring about him. And he's now since put in a transfer request as well.
Yeah, I mean, like Slape said, we don't know for sure, but just looking at how much allocation money Nashville has lying around and what positions they still need to fill before the season starts, I mean, I would be shocked if they hadn't at least kicked the tires on it. I don't know if it seems like they probably maybe did more than that, but I mean, we don't know for sure. But I think just looking at it, Amaya would be a good fit in Nashville. He's a young guy, he was called up to the U.S. Their December camp before. I think he had to drop out due to COVID. But I mean, he's clearly one of the best player on a really bad team, and I think would be a good fit in Nashville. And from his perspective, it just sounds like he wants to get out of Cincinnati and go to a team that can compete. So I'd be interested to see what happens with him if that transfer request that he puts in kind of forces Cincinnati's hand a little bit, because I think they know that he's an asset that they can't just get rid of on the cheap. But now that he doesn't want to stay there, it might force their hand a bit.
So I do have a question though. So I've talked to some of the guys at Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and one of the things is that Amaya apparently wants to play as a 10. And that's one of the reasons that he wants out of Cincinnati, aside from the losing. Do you think he fits into this team as a 10?
I mean, I think he fits in the team as a 10. I don't think Nashville needs him as a 10, because I think Mukhtar is clearly better, and I think Lyall is probably. I think he would get a look before him. I think if he comes in, he's probably going to play in one of those deeper roles that you see from Godoy or McCarty.
I mean, you'd say the thing we need is like an out-and-out 8, right? Like, whereas Anibal and Dax are going to be more of a true 6, like, for the remaining time of their careers. We need a guy who's going to get forward box-to-box after them.
I think those guys are probably – I would say they're probably, like, between a 6 and an 8.
Hybrid, sure.
I think Anunga is an out-and-out 6.
Pure 6,
and I think that's fine, but you need to pair him with an 8. So I think those three guys, I think they're starting quality players in MLS, but they're going to miss time. I mean, Godoy is going to miss time with international duty because he's still a pretty big part of Panama's plans. And McCarty is 33. So, I mean, as good as he has been and as consistent as he's been, at some point you just have to stop counting on him to be able to play every minute of every game.
At the top level.
Right. And so I think he's still going to be the de facto starter whenever he's healthy, and he should still see the bulk of the minutes there. But, I mean, you kind of be foolish to go into the season without another option. I think Donaciano, who they took in the first round of the Super Draft, I mean, Mike Jacobs talked about him as kind of a reason they felt comfortable trading Derek Jones. So, I mean, he could factor in there. He could factor in a right back. But I still think going in with really those four guys as your starting options, it just seems pretty risky. So if they don't sign someone before the season starts, I'd be pretty surprised.
Average age of the squad, guys, has gotten younger. We're down to 26 years old. It's one of the younger rosters in the league. Thoughts on Mike Jacobs doing that build that way for such a young team? It's kind of unheard of, right?
I mean, yeah, I think signing as many players as he has from USL too is kind of unheard of as well. I mean, I can't think of another team that has more than one or two USL players on their roster, much less guys that they're bringing in to start week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nashville has signed like they would call like high potential young players before. I mean, we've seen it with their DPs, but I think we're really seeing a shift, whereas last year they went more for proven MLS veterans. And I think those are the guys who kind of have made up the core. And now you're seeing the guys that they're bringing to not necessarily be every minute starters, but to kind of round out the squad. I mean, you're seeing a lot of young players with a lot of potential. So I think it's an interesting strategy from Jacobs. And I wasn't expecting it. But Buana seemed like kind of the first guy in that trend. And I kind of thought he was going to be an outlier, but it seems like that's kind of been the strategy they've kind of adopted almost wholesale. So yeah, it's surprising, but I think it's exciting.
Last question for me, and we'll wrap up with Jersey talk. Do you guys still think there's a big signing out there, GAM level, high TAM level player before the end of the season? Sorry, not before the end of the season. Before the season starts. I said the wrong word then.
I don't know if it's going to be before the season starts. I mean, the window is open for a while after the season kicks off, and then you get the secondary transfer window in July and August. So, I mean, it might be more during the summer. I mean, we saw them bring in Cadiz last year mid-season, so
you think a guy like Amaya can be gotten early in the summer?
I don't know. I mean, I think part of that depends on if they think they can get Amaya. because
if they're like in the wooden spoon running, say
maybe. I mean, Cincinnati clearly doesn't. They don't seem like they want to sell Amaya. So I mean,
right.
Maybe I don't know if Nashville is going to stick around and wait for him. If it's a position of need, they might look elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, they're stockpiling Cam for a reason, and I don't think Mike Jacobs is just trading away assets for Cam, and eventually he'll use it if the need arises. I think he's a guy. I mean, they stockpiled it last year and went out and got Zimmerman, and I think it's probably just more calculated than just stockpiling it just to have it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things, Ben, you kind of touched on with the windows is that with the primary window, it actually runs until after the European season is over, which is one of the reasons you've seen all these MLS guys that have gone over on loans to the championship. So like, there's a chance that Nashville could snag somebody, in Europe right now that then we don't have to wait till the beginning of July for them to play. So
good over there.
Just got super broke up about it. Oh, that shit was so funny.
Yeah, sorry. I had something in my throat and I was trying not to cough, and I didn't finish my sentence.
I thought you were just getting really emotional.
Really emotional about it. Oh yeah. God, that was.
I'm
so
really
funny.
Emotional about GAM.
Allocation money is your passion.
I agree with you. I think that he's not stockpiling that kind of money to add Castellanos or Hines or those types of players throughout the roster. It's clearly to make a big move. We're going to see it something. I'd love to see some kind of big midfield signing come in before the season starts. But
I mean, here's a
Mike
question:
could have shot for the best deal.
So if it's not a midfield, I think we all think it's going to be a midfielder. Mm-hmm. What else do they need?
To me, it could be forward money if Cadiz isn't purchased.
Yeah, that's the I think that's the other big one is it's a Cadiz. I mean, it's
I'm not saying I think it's that, but it could be that.
Yeah, I mean, I still think if they don't go with Cadiz, they're going to go. I mean, they had the money to sign a DP striker before they stockpiled all this GAM, and I think they're probably going to look outside the league for it. So I think the DP striker is kind of a separate thing. So to me, all this GAM that they're acquiring is in addition to the 3 DPs they already have. I mean, I don't see them using $1 million in allocation money on a right back, which I think is maybe the other area of weakness that they have in the squad.
Johnson was, yeah, I agree.
I mean, they still haven't re-signed Eric Miller. So right now on the depth chart, you have Johnston, Anababa, and Denaciano, who's never played in MLS. So I mean, I think they'll sign someone before the season starts, but I don't think they're going to spend all this allocation money on a backup right back. So I think it has to be in midfield, and I don't think they're going to use this to go out and get another striker.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it just seems like a midfielder, right? Like that's what you're getting at, Ben. I mean, it just seems like that's where this money goes.
I don't think there's another area that they need that much, or that they are going to have to spend that much to get a quality option. So yeah, I think it has to be midfield.
Yeah, because you could maybe say that Romney's getting a little older, and they could be looking to his long-term replacement. But
Romney's 27? He and Zimmerman are basically the same age.
I thought Romney was 28, 29. But I mean,
no,
I'm just saying, like, but I think if they were going to try to replace him, they'd just put Jack Mayer in there, because I think
I think Mayer is the long-term guy.
I think that's where they see him. So
he's 27. Yeah, he's 27. But I agree. Yeah, Mayer's the guy there. So no,
you better not say he's getting old. I'm 27 and I'm already having a quarter-life crisis.
The whole is midfield.
Yeah, we talk about Dax being older all the time, and he's younger than I am. So like, I don't want to hear
right. Exactly. All right, last bit of business for the night, guys. Away kit leaks. I love it. I think it's a good-looking jersey, man. I like the end pattern. I dig it. The sound wave on the back is cool. You can't see it in that picture. Andy doesn't like the yellow trim on the neckline.
Andy thinks it's an Arsenal ripoff, though. So, I mean, what do we care? What he thinks?
Right. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's kind of where I fall with it. I'm interested to see it in person, because right now the logo, the crest is screen printed on there.
Yeah, right.
Which is a bit odd. And I still stand by, I would love to see this with yellow shorts. I like that.
Like,
I would love to see more teams in MLS not do the monochrome look,
Sure.
and go in two-tone. We probably won't see that, but
doesn't that come down from FIFA though? Like, I know recently, especially in World Cups, there's been a big push from FIFA just to make everything monochromatic.
But that's specifically from World Cup. They're not going to push
right.
that. They're not going to push that in the league.
I feel like that's kind of the global trend. With exceptions for sure, but I feel like that's kind of where it's heading. So, but I mean, yeah, I'd like to see like blue shorts with the home kit and yellow shorts with the away kit. I mean, kind of going with a Preds mix. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't love it. I don't hate it.
Is it better or worse than last year's?
It's better.
See,
I liked the one last year.
I just hate those stripes. I'm not blaming last year's kits. I'm blaming the shoulder stripes. If this thing had 3 shoulder stripes, all crazy, I'd hate this one too. But
I think I would have liked last year's better if
it didn't have that.
Been, well, no, if every team hadn't had that. It just feels like a template. I mean, it is a template.
Yeah,
right.
This feels a little bit more unique. I'm interested to see if that end pattern stands out on the field because I feel like it might just kind of look like a Navy shirt on the field.
It's fair, yeah.
And I would love to see just like do the reverse of the graphic. Like let's just see that crest just be the end, like the secondary mark. I'd love to see a little bit more, outside of the box on jerseys like we saw with Philadelphia. But I mean, it's not great. It's not terrible.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I think it's the best MLS jersey we've had.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
I don't think it's great, but it's not terrible. I don't think any of them have been terrible. I just hated those shoulder stripes.
I think the home has been solid, but it's
the home's fine. Yeah, I got no beef with it.
It's simple.
Just
you
plain,
can't go wrong with that. I mean, it's not like anything. It's not earth shattering, but
I'm
it's
super
not bad.
glad is we don't have the bullshit MLS just plain white T-shirt kit. We just have a yellow T-shirt kit, but at least it's yellow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Austin FC Legends kit, which was
right. Yeah, it's just like it's literally a white T-shirt with the sponsor on it. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. I hate that.
I don't hate the kit so much as the explanation that comes with them. Like every team who releases a white T-shirt, just trying to come up with a reason why it's the most
like
unique
DC
thing in white.
DC and the marble steps because there's like a small pattern in it.
It's just a PR spin why your supporters should be passionate about a white T-shirt.
A white
Philly
T-shirt,
knocked it out of the park. I know we're not going to go.
Philly's is great. Yeah, Philly's is great.
But
Philly and Sporting Kansas City, I feel like they consistently hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I like both of those. Guys,
this is another segment
thoughts?
we should have. So we need to have a goal rundown, greatest goals in Nashville SC history, and then we need to have an around the league kit ranking.
I like it.
Sloop has to be there for the around the league kit
ranking.
Yes. Yeah, he needs to moderate it.
Just a little bit behind the curtain. Sloop absolutely loathes anytime jerseys are brought up in any kind of discussion.
I almost said what he says, and then I didn't, which is good.
So tweet at NCA Mookie and let him know your thoughts on any jersey.
Just ask him to start a weekly column. I mean, he's looking for more writing ideas. Ask him for just to do a column ranking around the world, his favorite, his least favorites, what he thinks of every individual kit that has been released in any individual league, and I'm sure he'll love it. An
actual moment of congratulations to NCA Mookie. He did send his book on soccer and Soccer Fandom off to the publisher. So round of applause to Sloop on that. Big accomplishment. We're happy for him. He works hard on that stuff. I do find it hilarious he got paid to do that over the last year, but it is what it is. So, guys, final thoughts for tonight's pod. Anything else we want to touch on?
No, I mean, nothing really. I mean, I think we kind of hit everything. I will say there's going to be a Eurovision this week.
Nice.
Myself, Lucas, and Will
let's go.
We'll be coming in later this week after Champions League action.
Okay, let's touch on that. What's the Chelsea Atletico score tomorrow? Anybody opinions?
1-1.
1-1.
2-0 Atletico.
I was going to say 1-0 Atletico, and I actually would have taken Chelsea for a good result if Silva was playing, but Silva's hurt. So if Christensen is in the lineup, I think a draw is possible. But if it's Zuma, I got Chelsea losing 1-0. I don't think Atletico bags goals on us like that, though. I mean, they got stomped by a team I've never even heard of the other day. So
Luis Suarez is lighting La Liga on fire.
Yeah, no, he's playing great. I'm not saying he's not playing good. I think Atletico is one of the best teams in the world, but it's one of those matchups for whatever reason. Cholo just comes to Stamford Bridge and just has a fit every time. Like it just is what it is.
I think at this point, the Atletico's in a bit of a funk right now too. They've had a draw and then a loss in their past 2 games. So, I mean, Luis Suarez is on a one-way FU tour to Barcelona right now in La Liga.
I might be wrong, but hasn't he scored more than like every Barcelona striker combined?
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look,
Davey, do you think future
ahead.
Bayern Munich winger Christian Pulisic will get the start for Chelsea tomorrow?
No, I don't think he will get the start.
Just Thomas Hate America.
Also, real quick. Doyle is crazy saying he thinks that dude's going to be a top 5 winger in the world for years to come.
Yeah.
That's too high of a ceiling.
I'd say top 20 feels more
and top
attainable.
20 is like a hell of an accomplishment, mind you. Top 5 winger in the world for years to come is like what a weird statement to make about him as a player.
No, yeah, top 5 is, I mean, that is, there are a lot of guys out there that
like top 5 to me is like the argument of like he's world class. Like he's he's in the conversation for best winger in the world. No way, dude.
Yeah, I mean, top 5. If you just think about current top 5 wingers, I mean, it's like Mbappe, Messi. I mean, Neymar, Salah. Yeah, I mean
Hazard a few years ago, right? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man.
Marcus Rashford isn't probably even breaking into the
that's
top
what
5.
I'm saying,
and
dude. Exactly.
Pulisic is nowhere near his level. So yeah, right. I think that's
it's crazy town. That being said, I think he'll play tomorrow. I'm not sure that'll start. I think you'll see Werner start on the left. Look, and listen, I'm not blaming Tuchel for this either. When you have to play him in a back 3 like that, until he can sign a center back, he's going to keep playing a back 3, and we're going to see limited spots up front for guys like Werner, Pulisic, whoever. So I don't know. I'd love to see Werner move over, but it is what it is. Havertz back in the lineup tomorrow too, so we'll see what he does. Maybe like false 9 from him. Well, it'll be interesting. I think that's where he ends up eventually.
This has been Chelsea. Davey talked through his Chelsea issues.
Yeah. I just enjoy me happy while you can, because it's not going to last, I don't know,
it's
roughly 20 hours. It's going to be around something like that.
I can't wait. I like you better when you're miserable.
Also tweet Andy, ask him about his favorite Chelsea goals.
Andy loves talking Chelsea. He loves that and shit. Oh, man. All right, guys. Great episode. Always fun to catch up. We're going to be back soon, obviously, with season preview. My goal is to make it down for some preseason games so we can talk through more of that. We got Eurovision coming up Wednesday. No, I'm not going to do that. My phone, my battery sucks these days. I get like 8 minutes into the match and it'll die.
I got a new phone. I'll come down.
There you go. Did you get the Pro?
Yeah, I did.
Nice. I want to get it.
Hey, let's do this. Let's review new phones while we're at it. I mean, we're kind of off the rails anyway.
All right. BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Written content there. Eurovision out on Wednesday after the Champions League games. Keep an eye out for it. As always, thank you for listening. Steven shares Cameron Lancaster goal. I mentioned that one earlier. It's a great goal. Steven agreed completely. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Caitlin, Brad, I hope you enjoyed the few minutes of the show that you tuned in for. We'll be back soon, guys. This is Speedway Soccer. Have a great night.
Carson Wentz, 2021 MVP. Heard it here first.
God. Get out of here, Stillman.
Never go full shepherd.
No.